right, good morning, folks. As you're joining, welcome to the TCLAS High Quality After School Award Confirmation webinar. We're going to give everyone a minute or two to join, and then we'll get started. Morning, folks who are just joining. We're going to go ahead and give everyone another minute or two to join. So hang tight and we'll get started here shortly. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TCLAS High Quality After School Award Confirmation webinar. We're super excited to be kicking off this work with everyone and to be touching base today. Quick introductions from us. There we go. My name is Brian Doran. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning Models here at TEA. So thinking through everything extra time and how to support you all in implementing those initiatives. We also have, you all want to do some quick intros, Gloria?
Sure. Hi, I'm Gloria Matthews. I'm the High Quality Instructional Materials Integration Manager. And so through High Quality After School, I'm thinking a lot about how to integrate high quality materials, high quality instruction in the after school setting. And really excited to be here. Congratulations to all of you. We're gonna have some fun.
Everybody, welcome. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I know this is a crazy time of year for folks, but you could say that about pretty much every time of year for folks in education. So very excited that y'all are joining us with the purpose of learning more about your award for high quality after school. And as Gloria mentioned, congratulations.
Hi, I'm Christine McCormick. I'm the statewide coordinator for 21st Century Community Learning Centers and Expanded Learning Initiatives here at TEA. And I see a lot of our 21st century folks in the room. So we are really focused on helping those folks in particular, but also all 21st folks to take on initiatives like this. So we are here to support you.
Great. So our goal today is really to refamiliarize everyone with Decision 11. It's been a little bit since you submitted your application. We also want to make sure that everyone is crystal clear on what this program is and what this program isn't before you submit or as you're submitting your confirmation surveys to accept your grant awards. So a quick recap just to be sure here, everyone on this webinar should be an awardee of Decision 11, and you should have received an email on Tuesday afternoon, evening with that award. So with that purpose, with that overall goal, we have 5 quick things on the agenda. First, we'll run through an overview of the supports and programming for Decision 11. We'll then go into a quick review of the assurances. We'll walk through the actual confirmation survey itself if you haven't had a chance to complete that yet. We'll talk through some next steps that you can expect to see in January. And then we'll end with some question and answers. So anything that we don't answer during this session, you'll have some time at the end to ask those questions. Throughout this webinar, while we're talking, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the question and answer box. It's far easier for us to track in the Q&A box as opposed to the chat. We don't want to miss anything. And we'll get to everything that we're able to in the Q&A section of the agenda. And then we're also recording this right now. And so we'll post this to tea.texas.gov/TCLAS shortly after the webinar. So let's go ahead and start and really ground ourselves in the why behind after school. I'm sure we don't really need to cover this too much with everyone on this call, but really this spurred from, of course, a COVID response and need for learning acceleration for all of our students across the state. And so we know that after school programs and high quality after school programs especially can really push the needle for our students. And what that means to us is that these programs have a safe and healthy environment, that we have adults that are trained in both academic and non-academic pieces of the after school program. We have themes and after school programs and activities that are based in student needs, and that's both academic and enriching in nature. And then we're delivering targeted academic support, and in particular, support that meets the requirements of HB 4545, and really aligning with student needs, high quality curriculum and instruction, and the regular school day. So these are our core tenets of what we see as a high quality after school program. And what this means specifically for Decision 11 then are a couple key pieces that we're looking at for the program design itself. So first, we have student attendance for at least 4 days per week for 3 hours per day after school. We're looking for a staff to student ratio of 1 to 15 or lower within the overall after school program. And then for those of you who are running a high impact tutoring model, the portion of your program that is high impact tutoring should be a 1 to 3 staff to student ratio. We should have a designated full-time staff member to oversee the after school project, at least 1 hour of academics per day, and then enrichment activities that are aligned to student need and interest. So this is all of these and the core tenets above as well really factor into a robust after school program. And we recognize that people are at varied places in their after school journey. Some of you might have been operating a program through 21st for years now. Some of you might be just getting something off the ground. And so to really capitalize on both the expertise and community that we have within this group, as well to help focus on these tenets, Decision 11 will really push all of us through a strategic designing process in spring of 2022 to really learn from each other and make sure that we are building as high quality programs as possible. So from a programming standpoint, this means a couple things. One, we are really focused on overall the development of what we're calling the after school strategic plan. So this will be an artifact-based strategic plan focusing on some key components of after school, of high quality after school programs. We'll have more information about that strategic plan itself in January, but know that we'll be looking for development of that over the course of this upcoming spring and submission to us in late spring, so April to May. We're also looking for implementation, high quality implementation of HQIM materials, high quality instructional materials. So that means staff who are implementing the HQIM will need to be trained on those throughout the course of or prior to using them. And so that's both for high impact tutoring models and non-high impact tutoring models. So we'll have opportunities for that training January, February, and into March. And also as part of this, both strategic planning and HQM training, we'll have some workshops. We're looking at 3 to 4 workshops in February, probably into April, really focusing on some of the key elements of that strategic plan and learning from each other in how different programs are running that. And then finally, we'll have some data collection pieces. So we'll be looking for product usage data collection, student attendance rates, things like that. And then some sporadic program surveys. For example, some more on the compliance side, confirming your technical assistance vendor or HQM that you're using. And then also just programmatic outcomes that we'll be looking at. So this is a lot of that is in this upcoming planning year in spring of 22. We're treating this as a planning year. You can replace that word with pilot. You can replace that word with kind of the trial. The goal here is to really develop and hone your existing or new after school program into the key elements of a high quality program. And then with a lens of continuous improvement, we have 2 execution years. And so these years will be really then just doubling down on your strategic plan and really implementing with an increasing eye of looking at the data that you're seeing and making those adjustments continually to make it an even better program. So we'll have an annual reflection process that will be less extensive than your initial strategic plan, but really taking a look at your existing data and saying, okay, here are the adjustments that we're making this year. And this is what we're focusing on. We'll have just a couple of workshops over the course of the year, some data submission dates, and really just, like I mentioned, the lens here is really driving for continuous improvement of after school programs. So that's from a programmatic side. This is captured in a lot of the assurances that you see potentially in the Decision 11 overview document. And then this is also a fair amount of taking a look at your after school program and refining or adjusting. And so we know that there are supports necessary, and those are the supports that you applied to and the awards that you received notification of on Tuesday. And so that's separated out into 3 categories. Hopefully most everyone on this call is familiar with these already, so I'm just going to breeze through them pretty quickly. And we certainly have time for questions at the end as well. But the 3 categories of supports are personnel for high quality after school. We have technical assistance for after school design and implementation, and then instructional supports for after school, 11A, B, and C. First, 11A, this is just making sure that you have funding for personnel. One of the assurances is a full-time FTE delivering or really leading this after-school project that includes development of the after-school strategic plan. And you were awarded, if you applied to this, the amounts below for that personnel. If you have existing personnel that are in existing FTE, then these funds would be eligible for use of other after-school needs and personnel as well. 11B is technical assistance support. So if you applied to this, you would have received funds according to this chart below. So this is intended to help you get an outside lens to really help drive your strategic planning process. We have a number of folks that you might consider looking at that we'll talk about in a little bit. But really it's up to each individual organization about who they want to ultimately contract with to help support them in this work. And then 11C is the instructional supports. You had either option A, and that's awardees who are interested in high impact tutoring, or option B, those who were not interested in high impact tutoring itself, but looking at high quality instructional materials supports. So option A here, we're looking at high impact tutoring within after school programming. So that means at least one 30-minute tutoring session 3 times a week for participating students. Individualized support in small group settings, that 1-to-3 ratio. We're looking at high quality instructional materials aligned to standards and core classwork, consistent and well-trained tutors, and then data-driven with tutors building sessions around student strengths and needs. Folks who applied to this were awarded stipends for those tutors and teachers or other educators, and that amount is stipulated in your award funding. The other award here for 11C is the instructional supports, is high quality instructional materials in after school programs. And so this will be licenses to the products that you see on the screen here, and then additional funding for professional development at a campus level. So if you applied to and were awarded this, this is the formula that we used for that award. So those are the amounts. That's a quick run through of what the awards actually are made up of. And that's also in your award email. I also want to flag that we have existing information on TCLAS Decision 11, and that includes the overview document as well as frequently asked questions document. Those can be found at tea.texas.gov/TCLAS. I'll pop over to that here in a bit to share to show you exactly where that's at. But this TCLAS site can be your main hub for all things TCLAS. All right, so in addition to the programmatic aspects and the supports that you're receiving, and in order to receive those supports, you all agreed to some program assurances, and through the confirmation survey, we'll be asked to reaffirm your agreement to those assurances. So we want to cover just a couple of those real quick on this call. So some highlighted assurances here. You can find this in the TCLAS overview document. I think it's starting at the bottom of page 3, maybe actually page 7. Either way, it's in the TCLAS Decision 11 overview document, the comprehensive list, as well as in the confirmation survey. Some of these are things that we've already talked about. 2 that we want to call out in particular. Awardees will maintain a program staff to student ratio of 1 to 15 or lower within that overall after school program. and a ratio of 1 to 3 between tutors and students when high impact tutoring is happening. So if you're awarded 11C option A, that applies to you. And then the second thing to call out in, particularly is awardees are required to use at least one approved curricular product with Fidelity for your model. So we have those outlined within the overview document. And so that is one of the assurances that we're looking at in particular as well. In order to monitor this, we are looking at awardees who will be able to implement with Fidelity the instructional materials with Fidelity, and then achieve your student usage targets for those selected products after your startup period of the first 6 weeks of your implementation year. And so we'll have more information about this in January as we talk through kind of the licensing process and things like that for the high quality instructional materials. But just flagging this, that we recognize there's a little bit of a ramp up here, but we are looking for fidelity of product use as quickly as we can within these after school programs. All right, so that's the program in a nutshell. That is what everyone here is both awarded funds for and then asked to confirm your assurance to participate in. A quick recap of this overall process, just because I know there's a number of different things that we're asking you to do, and so I want to shed light on that. So the overall application process here, we started with the first step of just research, making sure that this feels like the right fit for you. Then we had an application, completing the initial Qualtrics-based application. The third step here is accepting an award via confirmation survey, and then finally there's a PDF grant application. Congratulations, you are done with 2 of these steps already. You are on step number 3. So this is accepting the award via confirmation survey. This is the survey that was linked out in your award confirmation email on Tuesday. And this is basically to say, yes, I want the grant funds that you are stipulating within the award email, and reconfirming that you agree to the assurances. And then finally, the final step in this award process is number 4 here, and this is completing a PDF grant application to release funds. So I know we have application here mentioned a couple times. So this final step is really the grants compliance side of things, of going in and making sure our TEA grants team is able to send the funds directly to your organization. And so that's the final kind of compliance piece. And that will be in January. We'll have some more information the first or second week of January. But the most pressing deadline for everyone here is by Friday at 11:59 Central. We're looking for a confirmation of your award. We've had a number of people go in and confirm already, which is great to see. But this confirmation survey really serves a couple purposes. You're confirming you want the money. You're confirming that you agree to all of the assurances. You are also confirming, or you have an opportunity to adjust your 11C option A or 11C option B inputs. And I'll cover that here in a second. And then also, somewhat critically here, you're identifying your TCLAS after school point of contact. So this may not end up being your final project manager if you're not quite at the point of identifying the final project manager, but we do need someone who is driving your Decision 11 after school work, at least until you have changed to a different project manager. So I'm going to pop over, share my screen to the actual survey itself. We'll run through that so you can see what that looks like. Andrew, can you give me a thumbs up if this is showing correctly on Chrome? No. How about now? Great, thank you. All right, so let me pop over to the survey itself. There we go. All right, so the link, the survey is linked in your award confirmation email, and this will take you to this link here. We have some initial information, basically the same context of what I described initially. The person who submits the survey will need to be essentially authorized by your district leadership or organization leadership to complete the survey on the organization's behalf. So just flagging that, you'll be asked to confirm that as well as sign at the end. So I pre-filled this just to speed this up a little bit. So sorry to pick on you, Bartlett. But this will take you into just selecting your LEA or nonprofit organization. And then you'll fill out a couple demographic pieces. First, who is actually completing the form, confirm you're authorized to confirm the grant award. We need the executive director or superintendent or chief academic officer authorizing it, your point of contact, and then business office information. You'll then get into this is the critical piece here. Do you actually confirm your award? So if you want the funding, you answer yes here. If for some reason something changed and you the scenario changed, then you would mark no. Once you confirm yes, you'll be taken to reaffirm your agreement to the assurances. So decision 11 overall assurances. So things that we highlighted above, I encourage you to take a closer look at this as well, just to make sure that you do agree to everything. And then you'll be taken to either 11C option A assurances or 11C option B assurances. And so depending on what your organization was awarded, you'll be taken to the assurance list that corresponds to that. And so you'll be asked to agree to those. And then you'll be given an opportunity to adjust your student estimates or your campus estimates. And so we recognize that in the initial application, which was submitted October, early November, you put in some initial numbers based on the best of your estimate. You have the opportunity to adjust those if you need to. And so let's say, for example, you recognize that, oh, I anticipated serving 100 students in a high impact tutoring model, but I'm actually only going to be serving 55. And so you would say, yes, I'm going to adjust that. And you would go then into this table and you would adjust that number. We'll ask for both total campuses and total number of students. I do want to flag that if you adjust this number, we are not able to increase award amounts. However, if you decrease the number of students for 11C option A, we would be decreasing your total award. There's some intricacies there, so take a look at the formula in the overview document. There's a potential that your award would decrease if your amount of students goes down substantially.
Hey, Brian, do you mind if I just add one thing with that?
Yeah, great.
We've had a couple of questions in the chat about this, about this number of students. So a couple of things. One is, this is the folks that are participating in your high impact tutoring model within after school. You could be serving many more students in after school, but this is specifically about those in the high impact tutoring model. That's one thing. The other piece is what Brian just alluded to. This could make your award go down, which is okay, because if you do not have this number, because the number of students that you put in this right here is essentially what TA is recording, and then we'll continue to monitor folks from. So it's very important that this number of students is accurate, because it impacts how TEA will manage the grant going forward. So if you put a lower number of students, you should put in your projected number of students, your estimated number of students, and make it as accurate as possible, so we can ensure that the management of the grant is as accurate as possible as well. Thanks.
Yep, awesome. And then also to that point, if you do not need to make any adjustments, just simply click no here. And then the final step of the confirmation process is to sign to confirm that all the information that you input is correct. You'll be asked for name, your role, and then just clicking the next arrow here will submit your survey. You will get the first person completing the survey, the email that they input will receive a copy of the responses. While I am on this screen as well, I do want to highlight a couple of those documents that we were flagging. So first, tea.texas.gov/TCLAS will take you to this page. And this is where you can find some more information about all things TCLAS, but in particular, after school. If you scroll down here to TCLAS resources, you will find the TCLAS after school overview document, as well as the TCLAS after school FAQs. And that will take you to the associated documents, and you can review those more closely as you prepare to complete your confirmation survey. All right, let me pop back over to the PowerPoint. All right. Great. And so this, that's the bulk of what we want to make sure that everyone is familiar with as we go into folks completing their confirmation survey. And then we do have a couple Q&A options or a couple of things that we want to flag as common questions so far that we've seen. One is, can we have more than 3 students in our after-school program that includes a high-impact tutoring model? So if you're awarded 11C option A, can we have more than 3 students, like the 1-to-3 ratio for tutoring? Yes, you can have students beyond those who are participating in high-impact tutoring. For the purposes of the grant award, we are requesting the amount that you are providing high-impact tutoring only. Can we use our own curriculum for your after-school program? You are required to use at least one approved curricular resource with fidelity for your model. So for 11C option A, the high-impact tutoring, that includes Amplify Intervention, BookNook, and or Zern. And then for 11C option B, that is the high-quality materials in after school, that is Amplify Intervention, Amplify Reading, BookNook, Mathia, ST Math, or Zern. Does TA have guidance on potential technical assistance providers for decision 11B? We'll have some more information about this as we really ramp up in January. But initially, if you're looking to take a look at some opportunities, we encourage you to consider folks like Texas Partnership for Out of School Time, TextPost, and their overall network can help direct you to potential opportunities there. We also have existing TCLAS approved vendors, which is linked in, I believe, in the overview document. And there are a number of other TCLAS decision points that actually overlap pretty nicely with decision 11, including the after school, or sorry, the summer programming and ADSE foyer redesign, as well as other planning decision points. Next, do we have to hire a new FTE if we already employ a full-time position that manages after-school programs? The answer here is no. If you already have an FTE with capacity and expertise to lead this program and meet all the assurances, including the strategic planning process, you're not required to hire a new position. You would be allowed to use those funds for additional personnel supports for the after-school program. Additionally, you can use those funds to fund multiple personnel. All right, so that's some quick Q&A stuff. I want to cover next steps first, and then we'll jump into overall Q&A, as I see we have a growing list here. So next steps, once you complete your confirmation survey, that's the most immediate next step. That's Friday, 12/17 by 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Then beginning in January, we'll have a couple things to really kick off the programming. First, in early January, we'll have a licensing survey. And the goal here is to really confirm your student count or campus count for the licenses that you requested through your initial application process. We'll have more information coming out early January. The second is to finalize your project manager and steering committee. So that's really looking for that in mid-February. And then we'll also be asking for your initial point of contact in the confirmation survey due tomorrow. And then the third next step, which will be kind of ASAP/January, is begin your technical assistance contracting. And so you'll be looking at completing your PDF grant application in January, and depending on your organization's ability to contract, if you are able to contract with pre-award funds, then you can begin that process pretty quickly there in January. If you have to wait until your notice of grant approval, you might need to pause for a little bit until we get those processed. And we'll have more information about that as well in early January. All right, Andrew, Gloria, Christine, anything that I missed initially from those sections?
And I think we're good. We do have some great questions that are in the Q&A. Folks that do have more questions, throw them in the Q&A. We designed this so that we'll have plenty of time to ask and answer those questions, and we can kick that off.
Great.
So I'll go ahead and start answering a couple while Brian, you're looking through those as well. And Gloria and Christine, and please jump in as you can help out as well. So first question about when the program should start. So the question asks if the program should start in January of this year, or is it next year? So the answer behind that is folks are going to be in different places. And so we're looking at this spring as a pilot year for folks that are starting up a new program, but we'll also consider it kind of a pilot year in terms of TEA work with you, even if you have a program that's already been moving. So we expect some work to be happening in the spring around after school. That's just going to look different depending on kind of where your program either has been or where it's going. There's a question, can we offer high impact tutoring before school starts as well as after school? So one of the nuances behind this grant is that the funds are specifically tied to after school. So any before school time or any during school time is not actually allowable for the use of these funds. So you just have to be, I think, kind of strategic in your design of the program of how and when you use your high impact tutoring time. That will need to be after school for the sake of this grant opportunity.
Christine, there's a couple questions in here about release of funds and when districts or organizations will actually have access. Would you be able to
I was just looking at those too, Brian. So what's going to happen is you're going to submit your grant application, and it's going to have your start date will be the date of your NOGA award. So on that date, you'll have actual access to the funds. The grant program has pre-award, so it allows for expenditures that you've incurred for the program to be reimbursed back to, we set it way back, it's back in like March 2021. So if you wanted to hire somebody now, you could do that. You'd have to cover that cost. So talk to your business office, you cover that cost, and then once you get your NOGA and you get access to our expenditure reporting system here at TEA, then you can submit those expenditures that are allowable and you will receive reimbursement for that.
A question here on job description. If we have a sample job description, we don't want to tailor that too much because it's going to look different district by district. We also don't want to get folks the explicit job description and say and have incorrect assumption that this needs to be the job description. So if there are some key points, we'll try to flag that for folks, but at this time we don't have a job description that we're able to share.
We have a few questions around kind of program expectations. One is, will the 90 days be required to be completed in the spring semester? So the answer to that is no. There should be 45 days in the spring semester. That 90 is guidance for the full year. And then again, we recognize that the spring folks will be kind of ramping up with this. And so we'll need to have some flexibility with that 45 as well. Again, as Brian said, that is also going to look different from district to district or awardee to awardee. We know some folks are going to already have that program for the next year.
I see a couple of questions about high quality instructional materials that I'll try to answer. The first one is about tutoring for high school students. And as Brian was talking about, high impact tutoring through high quality after school does have to include one of those approved providers. And so, for example, the product brought up was Zern. And so all the high impact tutoring products do not reach high school level. For folks who have been awarded option 11C, option B for high quality instructional materials, Mathia is an option that does get at the high school level, but it's not a part of that high impact tutoring option. There was also a question about Spanish language supports for high quality instructional materials. That does vary based on the instructional materials. For RLA, there are Spanish language supports for all RLA HQIM. The degree is different across the board, and we'll be sure to provide guidance about that when we provide guidance about HQIM.
So a couple questions on the district lead. So does the lead have to be currently employed by the district? The answer is no. We recognize some folks are going to need to hire for that. That being said, as Brian mentioned earlier, you should look for folks that may be managing similar work at the district or the school as well. There was some questions from a couple folks about, can we pay an existing administrator or pay a principal, especially in the case of a small district? The answer to that is yes. Keep in mind the expectations of that person are still going to be the same, whether that's a principal or whether that's somebody who devotes this 100% of the time. And so we'll manage towards that assurance, really, that strategic plan submission. And so I think really when we think about the plates of a lot of our educators right now, it's pretty tight, if not already overflowing. And so we want to be very mindful to not push more responsibilities on the folks that are already doing so much.
And to tag on to that, Andrew, for the 21st Century grantees, the 21st Century grant requires you to have a full-time project director. We will give you flexibility to use that position to also serve as the FTE for TCLAS. However, you will need to submit a grant amendment so you're in compliance with your 21st Century. So submit a grant amendment to TEA for your 21st Century program to show the percent of salary you're going to, that you estimate that you'll use from 21st for that position.
Thanks, Christine. There's a question about, are we able to decline part of this award? The answer to that's no. So keep in mind, the reason why y'all are here, the reason why you were awarded is because you fell into one of those prioritization tiers in the top few. What that meant is that you were committing to doing both Part A, Part B, and Part C, either option A or option B. It's a fun one. But if you essentially decline part of the award, you then would drop in tier. So it's not, you can't accept a partial award for this one. You have to accept the full one or decline the award if you can't meet the requirements.
We do have a couple organizations that were awarded starting in fall of 22. So they did not request funding for spring of 22. And the question here is, do those organizations go through the same strategic planning process in spring of 22, or do they hold until fall of 22? I think the answer there is that you would hold until you're actually receiving supports to do that process. And so fall of 22, it will look a bit different, meaning if you want to join the webinars and learning community sessions that we have over the course of spring, by all means do so. However, you would not be required to submit anything until fall of 22, just to make sure that you are actually able to take advantage of your grant funds. Christine,
a couple questions.
Sorry.
There's a couple questions in here about we need to update our information. That's what the purpose of this kind of period right now is to be able to update those to the best of your forecasting abilities before you get the award. And so please make those updates based on new information, things you learned today. But yes, absolutely. If you need to edit number of campuses or number of students, please do so.
And then Christine, could you share any light that you have on the reporting process? I see a couple questions in here on kind of, where did that go? Yeah, just highlight what the reporting process looks like.
Yeah, I think big picture, we'll have more information on that in January. As we're working with the different vendors across different initiatives, we're working to identify what kind of usage data we can get from them and the kinds of things that we're interested in overall. Now for 21st Century folks, we have a pretty robust reporting system. So we'll probably be adding some just check boxes in there and things like that to help us look at how 21st Century is able to do this and inform the field as a whole more broadly. So short answer, wait a little bit until after the new year.
Yeah, and we're also not, there will be reporting pieces. We're not trying to make it extensive beyond what am I trying to say? Like a huge drain on you all,
Right.
Recognizing that you all are very busy people and we have data that we're collecting in a number of different ways.
And as far as required federal reporting that TEA has to do, most of that is going to come through the financial data that you're already reporting to us. So I don't anticipate there being a lot of additional stuff for that financial piece. But there's a lot of pieces for us to put together before we can roll that out to you and make sure we're not collecting extra things from you that we don't really need, and keeping that burden as small as possible on you. And I see a question about summer that just came in. These funds are specifically for after school. There's separate funds that are for summer. And your district also should have some set aside money through the same fund source through ESSER that could be used for summer, but these funds cannot.
We have a couple of questions around the estimated student numbers. So like some pretty nuanced questions around what if a parent picks a student up early, or what if a student ultimately changes their enrollment status at the district. I think we have to do our best with the information that we currently have. So make your projections on those estimated numbers of students. Also, we know that we're dealing with humans and things come up. And so sometimes parents pick students up early, and that is what it is. So in your student estimates, do your best on projections. If there comes a time where if the change in actual students versus the estimated students gets considerably large, then the TA team will work with you to update the grant.
And this is similar to what Andrew just said. But the question is each student required to participate for the full 3 hours each day to count as being served? And I think the answer there is that each student needs to be offered 3 hours each day with the intent that they would be there for 3 hours. But to Andrew's point, like if a parent picks them up early, that's beyond the control. So the design of the program needs to be the 3 hours, but we don't have control over student attendance unless, yeah.
Question on program requirements around the 3 hour time for after school. So the question was specific to, do we have to have 3 hours of tutoring? You do not have to have 3 hours of tutoring. What you do is you have to have at least a high impact tutoring model within your after school. What that means is that you need to have at least one small group of no more than 3 students to an adult within your after school model. So that's the high impact tutoring model, in which you could have multiple of those within after school, which is why we price this out or price the grant by that number of students. There is a requirement that your after school program goes for 3 hours on top of the school day. So that is a requirement of this program that's backed up in a ton of research that was listed on our website. And we're happy to talk through that as well, and talk through how we can kind of navigate some of the problems that especially small districts face, their transportation. But that 3 hours for after school is a requirement.
Andrew, continuing on the tutoring question theme, are there requirements for a tutor, or are those determined locally?
I think I can speak to that. Yeah, the requirements for the tutor are a set amount of tutor training, and that is different by product, but it will be about the same as it was for Decision 6. So I know there are a few folks here who are asking about having tutors who are trained through Decision 6. It's the same sort of tutor training is going to occur. What that typically looks like is a 3 or 4 hour one-day training done through the ESCs. And a couple of the tutoring programs have a continuous learning component that tutors can do on their own. But all of the tutoring programs do have a training component that tutors are required to go to in order to participate in high impact tutoring.
Question here on what happens if number of students increase in following years. We have to work with the information that we have right now, so give your best estimate to what you anticipate will happen. And that's just kind of the nature of the opportunity that we have, unfortunately.
Again, some questions around project manager and hiring. We can only begin interviewing for that project manager in January. What if that project takes that process takes a few weeks? Again, that's an area where we can be flexible with y'all. At the end of the day, the assurance is that you have a project manager. We don't say when that needs to be by, but so we recognize that folks will need to. Some folks will need to actually get this grant approved by their boards before they can even post for the position. So we can be flexible with you there.
And then some questions on use of funds. I think particularly we have questions for 11C option A, high impact tutoring. And so you all would have received, if you applied to that and were awarded, you would have received a funding amount for high impact tutoring that correlates to the number of students that you are providing services for high impact tutoring. Your use of those funds, I think probably a lot of folks will be using that specifically for high impact tutoring or for the tutor pay itself. However, you are not obligated to use the entire amount of those funds for tutor pay. And so if you have additional expenses related to after school, then you would be able to use those funds for those expenses.
Question around samples of strategic plan or just other kind of programming questions. So we'll be able to kind of walk you through that programming process in more detail in the early year, where we will talk about the templates that will be available for you, the resources that will be available for you, the TEA supports that will be available for you, in addition to other support. So that stuff is coming for sure. We just want to make sure that y'all know the requirements that remind you all of the requirements that are included in this grant right now, so y'all can make that decision if we want to opt in.
Questions on fund code components. Christine, unless you know this offhand, 279 fund code. We'll get more information about that when we go through the PDF application process.
Exactly.
And that will be in early January.
Question on stipends here. Our school day ends at 1, but our work day ends at 4. Are we allowed to begin tutoring after the school day at 1 and pay our staff stipends? Yes, that's something that you're allowed to do. That's completely within scope here. So again, check out those assurances, and the assurances will kind of guide you on what is allowable and what's not allowable here. In terms of the process to access the high quality or the tutoring materials, so you can actually go on the TA website right now. There's a tutoring page. Frankly, I would just Google TEA tutoring supports, and you can learn more about the materials there. But we will walk you all through the process to get access and digital access to those materials once y'all accept your position in this program.
There's a question about filling out the survey and number of students that says if 75 students will be served by 11A, but more will be served by the 1:15 ratio, how do we amend the application? And this is just echoing something that Brian said earlier, that even if you're serving a larger number of students in the after school program as a whole, the number that we're looking for in the application is the number of students who will be served by high impact tutoring. So you are filling out that survey with your high impact tutoring students. Good question, thank you.
That's specifically for 11C option A.
The question on the technical assistance support question is that an approved vendor under that TA has already approved? If we think about those 11B dollars, that is, we intentionally left that a little bit broader because we know there's a lot of great folks in the field that are supporting folks in implementation of high quality after school programs. So that decision is left at the awardee's discretion.
A question that I just tried to type an answer to and then clicked answer live instead. So I'll do that. So the question is, can we put 0 students for spring for after school tutoring program, for that high impact tutoring program, and then actually start implementation next school year? Yes, you have that opportunity. So what we would ask is that you adjust your numbers in your confirmation survey to reflect 0 in 11C option A, and then put the students that you will be estimating to serve for 22-23 and 23-24.
There are a few good questions in the chat about overlapping hires. So one was about, could the project manager of this be the same person as the project manager for summer, or as the data lead for decision 1 LEA strategic planning support? The answer is yes there. That person can be the same person. Just keep in mind the assurances. You're going to be putting more responsibility on those people. So ensure that you're not adding to their already full plate, that they are well equipped to lead this. We'll say there's a lot of, that's a smart strategy because there's a lot of strategic overlap in that work, right? We don't think about after school as something separate. It is an extension of the school day. And so I think that strategy of using a project manager that's working on implementing other work is a smart one. Question on the rate of pay for tutors. We don't set the rate of pay. That's a local decision that y'all can make. We did have to make calculations on our own to project that. So we projected out an average of $50 per hour, which is what we've seen some folks use across the state. So tutor pay, and it doesn't even have to be tutor pay. It could be educator or a paraprofessional, whoever is doing the tutoring. That is calculated by us at one rate, but you can decide what you want that rate to be for your awardee. There's a few questions about recording the transcript of these, the Q&A. So most of these questions are already answered in the FAQ that's currently posted. So if you need documentation of that, go to that FAQ that's posted on taa.texas.gov/TCLAS, and you can actually see these questions split into the categories you were you're asking questions about.
A question about if we will be assigning the technical assistance vendors, which is something that we did for TCLAS decision 7 and 8, and then I think decision 1 might have done so as well. Or can the organization itself decide? The organization can decide here. So you have options if you're already working with a vendor that does similar design and implementation work. That might be a great opportunity for you to use these funds to then not have to worry about managing a bunch of different vendors. And so that is up to your discretion.
We got a great strategic alignment question here. Do these only apply for our regular 180 days in our calendar, or can we also use this for ADSI days? This question makes Brian excited. Makes all of us excited.
Yeah, it does. The concern there is ADSI days, additional day school year, for anyone not familiar. ADSI days are non-compulsory for students. And so the only concern that I would have is being able to have the students who you are targeting for after school also be attending those ADSI days. after school is also technically non-compulsory. And so my initial response would be, I think that is a great potential alignment piece. And I think that could work. Yeah.
We have a question on if we applied for high impact tutoring, is just giving 30 minutes of after school okay? The answer to that is no. Keep in mind the high impact tutoring requirements are inclusive of the broader umbrella here, which is after school. After school, we're saying, so everybody that's on this call, all of our awardees must have a 3-hour program. Within that, you can have 30-minute sessions for tutoring. So you have to have that 3 hours, and then you should have multiple 30-minute high impact tutoring sessions happening within that.
I just want to add even a caveat to what Andrew said, just to make sure that we're super clear. There is the 3-hour after school program, and inside of that, there's a 1-hour academic requirement for all after school programs. And so within that 1-hour requirement is tutoring can happen in 30-minute increments. So perhaps there's a student who's attending tutoring for 30 minutes and spending another 30 of those minutes in a different sort of academic setting. That is fine, but there's the 30-minute requirement, or sorry, the 3-hour requirement, the 1-hour academic requirement, and the 30-minute tutoring, which can happen within that 1 hour. I hope that made it less confusing and not more confusing.
What I think we can do, especially as we get into the programming, is start working on master schedules and getting those out to folks so that you can we can like literally hand over that schedule of what that 3 hours could look like and how they could break out with a high impact tutoring model, including those requirements. So great question. Another excellent question. It's essentially, we submitted our student information based on all the students that are student numbers based on all the students that are going to be in after school. Do we need to adjust that for 11C option A for the students that are in the high impact tutoring model? The answer to that is yes. So keep in mind, that is kind of how we're calculating out the stipends for your tutors. So in 11C, for the folks that are doing high impact tutoring, the student number that you're giving is the student number, as the number of students that are participating in high impact tutoring.
A question here about what if student estimates are not met. I think, the word estimate kind of gives one of the key clues there is we are looking for the closest estimate as you're able to. If it starts to be a large discrepancy between your estimate and what you're reporting as student attendance, then we'll have a conversation and see what's going on and go from there. But really the crux of this is do your best estimate. Part of the design and implementation process, the strategic planning process, will be around program design to encourage attendance as well. And so the goal of this is to minimize the risk of low attendance there.
Gloria, there's a question about Mathia that's in the Q&A that I'm going to come back to here in a second, but wanted to talk about one that is really important. It says, how does HB 4545 relate to nonprofits? So the technical answer here is that it doesn't. HB 4545, which talks about the learning acceleration requirements for students that did not pass state exams last year, is for Texas districts and charter schools. That being said, this is a huge opportunity here for nonprofits to support the schools and districts in meeting those HB 4545 requirements, and so providing that extra time. So again, the HB 4545 does not directly apply to nonprofits, but is obviously part of the value propositions of your program. There's a question about Mathia. It says, if Matthew, do you have it? Do you have it, Gloria?
Yeah, I just
Thanks
found
so
it. So the question says, if Mathia was not a viable option for high school, are there other grant vetted opportunities for high impact tutoring? And the sad answer is that there are no high impact tutoring options for high school. So Mathia can be used for high school in the high quality instructional materials setting, but for high impact tutoring, there is no high school option.
Brian, there's a question in the chat. If we listed 72 students, I think that I was just going to level up the question here. When they list numbers of students, is that per campus or is that total students in the district or the total students that'll be in the after school program?
So for student count for the confirmation survey, we are asking that at the 11C option A level, meaning that is any student across the organization, across your district or nonprofit organization who will be receiving high impact tutoring supports.
So all students in the organization or district
who are receiving high impact tutoring.
Yep.
Question here about use of funds for 11B and what do basically what do the design and implementation vendors do? So this is a model that we've used for a couple other initiatives where we have external vendors provide design and implementation support for organizations, for districts to implement their programs. And so these vendors will support you in project planning. They'll support you in identifying promising practices for after school programs. They might do some diagnostics for any existing after school programs and ensure that your strategic planning process leads to a strong program. And then in recurring years, take a look at existing data with you and then support you through that annual reflection and revision process. And so this is intended to be an external vendor who can come in and support your organization. And so anything outside of that, we would want to have a conversation to make sure that we're on the same page. But we also will have more information about this in early January to help you identify the best vendor for you moving forward.
I do just want to flag that I know we're at 12 o'clock and some people may need to go. So I'm going to put also the our email address. I know we have not gotten to every single question. So if you do need to go, I'm going to put our email address in the chat to make sure that people have that and they can reach out with other questions. I'm also going to put the TCLAS page with the overview document and the FAQ in there as well.
And there's a question of from a couple folks of if we make changes to our number of students in this award confirmation survey, when will they be notified that those changes are selected or approved?
Yeah, we'll work with our grants team to adjust the award amount, and then we would be looking to have like a pretty quick turnaround, so you are updated on that information. And so I would say the first week of January just to be safe, but we'll be looking to make that adjustment pretty quickly.
For folks that have to go, totally get it. I think a couple of us are able to stay on for a few more minutes, and so I'll try to again answer as many questions that we can, that we have the information to give back to folks. There's a question on how do we account for attendance for high impact tutoring. That'll be based largely on the usage data from the actual programs, and so that's how TEA is able to kind of see what That's how we're able to kind of see what is happening at the student level. So that's what we'll look at for attendance. And I wouldn't really consider it attendance, but it's kind of fidelity of implementing the model. There's a question around how many times must a student attend the high impact tutoring to be counted as served. So again, I think this is where the requirements for after school go beyond the requirements for high impact tutoring, where we require a student in a regular school, a full school year, to be there for 90 days. So again, we recognize that we're dealing with humans and that something's changed, but 90 days is the target for student attendance in the after school model. A couple questions around, hey, I submitted our award confirmation, but I need to change it based on new information. That's okay, change it, and we'll take the last survey that you send in, but a good check for you is to also just email us at afterschool@ta.texas.gov, just to kind of flag that for us so we can check it in our system. The student numbers for 11C do not impact your 11A award. Everybody on this call has, my understanding. So 11A and 11B will not be impacted by number of students. It was a flat rate based on your kind of prioritization. See a few folks jumping off now. Thanks so much for joining us. Happy holidays back to you as well. We just appreciate your time. Appreciate you being a part of this new and super exciting opportunity for us to extend the amount of time that kids spend engaged with high quality curriculum instruction. So excited to have y'all join us in this work, and thanks so much for joining today. There's somebody trying to clear up a misconception about the 3-hour requirement for after school. That's a requirement for everybody to meet that after school 3-hour time frame.
Ryan, I see a question in there about like if someone wants to, like maybe they're opening a new school next year, adding a school to the district. Our survey is set up so that they can enter a different number each year, correct?
That's right. And then you would estimate number of students accordingly. So yes, you'd be able to input that into the survey.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I have to hop, team, but thanks for the work on this. Thanks to all those that are still hanging on. We
Yeah.
appreciate you joining us and just appreciate all the things that you're going to do and that you're already doing for kids in Texas.
Yeah, similarly. And I think I believe we've gotten to everything that would be impacting the survey tomorrow, I hope, or the most immediate deadline, which is completion of the confirmation survey tomorrow. Please feel free to reach out to afterschool@tea.texas.gov. We'll be monitoring that over the course of today and tomorrow for especially any immediate needs for the confirmation survey. And then know that we will be providing more information in early January, both around the PDF grant application process, the technical assistance contracting process, as well as high quality instructional materials confirmation and sign up and rostering process as well. But I think we'll take any additional questions that aren't answered in the FAQs as well and try to get that document updated as quickly as we're able to. And other than that, be on the lookout for more information to the point of contact that you indicate in the confirmation survey. And thanks everyone for joining us on such short notice. Also apologies for such short notice, and thank you for your flexibility in the quick turnaround with confirmation surveys and everything like that. Have a great break, and we will talk again in January.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.